I didn't know the room existed until the vent began to breathe. At 0313 hours, the emergency strip along the floor came alive, a thin vein of red under the door that shouldn't have been there. The map said wall. The corridor said wall. The door inhaled. A low, damp draw, like someone sipping the air through cloth. I put my palm against the steel and felt it push back. Not a knock, a pulse. 47 seconds steady, 13 seconds gone. Then again. It settled into me. In through the door, out through my ribs. The handheld pinged. Access, Black Chapel, restricted. The display flickered as if it were embarrassed by the words. I blinked. The building plans didn't have a Black Chapel. The icon dragged itself 3 inches across the screen and stopped over nothing. Behind me, the hallway lights thinned to a headache white. There was a wet note inside the ductwork, the kind of sound a mouth makes when it has learned patience. The grill above my head trembled, a square of dust falling, lazy to my sleeve. I listened. There was Latin in it, but wrong in the joints. Syllables bent on the way out, a prayer that had been taught to breathe backwards. I placed my ear to the seam and found cold that wasn't temperature. It moved like intent. A smear of condensation traced my silhouette and then retreated as if the door had smelled something it recognized. The strip light at the base popped once. Somewhere deeper, glass rubbed against glass. The floor underneath carried a second rhythm, the heavy one that belongs to weight changing its mind. I knew the corridor's noises by then. Bearings, fans, the little chuckle of condensate dropping into a pan. This wasn't any of those. This was a throat rehearsing. The handheld buzzed again and printed a line I hadn't asked for. Service, channel, listen only. I didn't touch the screen. A click. Then the hiss of an empty room filling up, the gentle tide that sound makes when it finds a microphone. Stay, it said, almost polite. The word wasn't loud. It just arrived everywhere at the same time, in the vent, in the strip light, in my teeth. I don't think my mouth closed all the way after that. The taste of old coins rose and sat under my tongue. I raised the latch cover. The lens in the panel gave back a small piece of my face and refused the rest. The red glow reached out under the door and broke into little fingers where the concrete was uneven. One of those fingers stopped on my boot and did not leave. Another breath, another. The 13 seconds of silence stretched their back and became longer than they were. Somewhere above, a bell tested itself with a single uncertain strike. The steel at my temple warmed as if a mouth were on the other side of it, breathing through cloth, learning my rhythm and teaching me its own. Don't, someone said behind me. A different voice, human, urgent. It arrived late, like a warning traveling the long way around. The door exhaled. The latch flexed without my hand on it. The gap opened to the width of a finger, and the red came through, soft as water through moss, and the breath from the vent found its shape. I wasn't ready for the smell. Hot iron, the aftertaste of lightning, and beneath it, old incense that had laid down and gone to sleep decades ago. The handheld screen dimmed, then brightened, then chose a new word. Open. I didn't touch it. The breath went on. 47, 13, 47, 13. The gap widened to 3 inches. The red turned from vein to wound, and the room that didn't exist let me hear it thinking. My name is Daniel Mercer. Electrical Systems Maintenance, Stanton Industrial Maintenance, Baltimore Division. We handle contracts most people don't notice. Wastewater plants, naval archives, hospitals where no one wants to work nights. The Vatican job came through on a Tuesday morning. One line in a company-wide email. International contract awarded, St. Peter's Basilica, Vatican City. Full systems inspection and recalibration. No one believed it at first. Stanton rarely worked outside U.S. federal structures. But 2 days later, we were boarding a flight to Rome, with crates of diagnostic tools and the kind of non-disclosure agreements that make your skin itch. They called us technical custodians. We were supposed to treat the Basilica like a data center. Temperature, voltage, filtration, humidity, all logged and cross-checked every 6 hours. 7 zones, 7 days. Simple math. Reyes was team lead, former Army engineer, the kind of man who can make silence sound like authority. Olson handled HVAC, tall and soft-voiced, always smelled faintly of ethanol wipes. Miller was the youngest, a fresh degree in digital systems, the only one who kept a vlog, though officially he wasn't supposed to record on site. And me, the electrician. I read schematics like some people read confessionals. We lived in an annex east of the Basilica, old guest quarters for visiting workers, now stripped down to concrete, bunk beds, and a vending machine that groaned like a dying organ. The Vatican staff didn't talk much. Security escorted us between sectors. Everything smelled faintly of lemon oil and candle smoke. The first few days went smooth. We tested fire suppression lines under the north transept, recalibrated the thermal sensors in the catacombs hallway, and patched a few bad voltage regulators. By day 4, I started to forget where I was. The place felt less like a church and more like a labyrinth wearing a priest's skin. Reyes logged our progress every night in military time. Zone 3. Stabilized at 21 degrees Celsius, vent pressure holding, no anomalies. That kind of report. Clean, predictable. He liked things that stayed where you put them. That changed on day 5. At exactly 1400 hours, while we were packing up to leave the South Maintenance Wing, the door opened and a man in black stepped inside. Not the plain cassock we'd seen around the Basilica. This one was heavier, matte, almost absorbing the light. No insignia, no ID tag. He greeted us in fluent English. "Gentlemen, I'm Father Lucian." His accent was European, but hard to place, somewhere between French and something older. He carried a thin folder under his arm and smiled with the kind of precision that felt rehearsed. Reyes looked up from his clipboard. "You're not on our contact list, Father." Lucian nodded once as if the statement were true but irrelevant. "There's a room," he said, "a small technical chamber beneath the chapel archives. It requires immediate inspection, filters, ventilation, camera feeds. It's a sensitive area." Olson frowned. "We're not cleared for anything off the map." Lucian opened the folder. Inside was a stamped authorization sheet bearing the Vatican seal, and at the bottom, the signature of someone whose title began with Cardinal Prefect of the Apostolic Archives. Miller whistled under his breath. "That's some clearance." Lucian ignored it. "The work must be completed before midnight." Reyes studied the document, then glanced at me. "What's the pay adjustment?" Lucian smiled again, small and exact. 10 times your current rate. Each. The room went quiet enough for us to hear the hum of the power inverter. We followed him down a corridor that looked different from the rest. Older stone, less restoration. The air colder, though we were deeper underground. Lucian walked without hesitation. At several turns, he produced keys longer than my hand and used them on locks that didn't seem mechanical. At the final door, he stopped. It was metal, painted the same color as the wall. No signage, just a single recessed panel with a biometric pad. He turned toward us. "Before you enter," he said, "you must understand certain conditions. They're not negotiable." Reyes folded his arms. "We're listening." Lucian looked at each of us one by one. His eyes were pale, almost gray-blue, and didn't blink as often as they should have. "There are 5 rules." The way he said rules made it sound like ritual. Rule 1. You will not mention this room outside of it, not to your superiors, not to any Vatican staff, not to one another when you leave. You were never here. He waited for acknowledgement. Reyes nodded. Miller half smiled like it was part of the performance. Rule 2. No mirrors, no reflective metal, no recording devices of any kind. The surface inside must not see itself. He said that last sentence quietly, like quoting something older than him. Miller lifted his small GoPro case. So, no video, right? Lucian's eyes didn't move. Correct. You record nothing. You reflect nothing. Rule 3. If you hear a voice, you do not answer, no matter what language, no matter whose voice it resembles. He said, resembles with care, like the word had teeth. Olson gave a nervous laugh. Is there someone inside? Lucian didn't react. There is always someone inside. Rule 4. You will see inscriptions on the walls, Latin. You do not read them aloud, not even by mistake. The words were not meant to be heard twice. I caught myself glancing at Reyes. He had that military stillness that means discomfort, hidden under obedience. Rule 5. When the bells strike 3 times, you will stop whatever you are doing and leave immediately. Even if the work is unfinished, do not wait for permission. The sound is your dismissal. Lucian closed the folder. The church appreciates obedience. It is safer than faith. Miller exhaled, trying to lighten the air. You guys have some spooky maintenance protocols. Lucian almost smiled. This room requires more than maintenance. It requires silence. He extended a pen. Sign the waiver, please. The paper was in Latin and English. It released the Vatican from liability for psychological distress, exposure to sacred containment fields, or loss of personal faith resulting from duty execution. I remember that last phrase. Loss of personal faith. I joked about it later with Miller, but the words felt heavy even then. We all signed. Reyes first, clean block letters, then Olson, then Miller, then me. Lucian placed the papers back into his folder, locked it with a clasp that clicked too loud in the empty corridor. Inside the annex that evening, we talked quietly over instant coffee packets and the cheap hum of the heater. Reyes kept staring at the wall as if trying to find logic in stone. 10 times the pay, he muttered. Olson said, You think it's some secret archive? Maybe old relics, radiation hazard or something? Miller grinned. Or the Pope's panic room. I said nothing. My hands still smelled of incense from Lucian's office. It didn't make sense. We hadn't been near a chapel all day. At 2100 hours, Reyes gave the briefing. Tomorrow 0800 we report to Father Lucian. We do the job, we log it, we don't ask questions. Everyone clear? We nodded. He paused. And no recording devices. Company policy or not, this is their turf. Miller raised his phone. What about this? Leave it, Reyes said. You heard the man, no reflections. Miller muttered something but obeyed. That night I couldn't sleep. The air in the dorms had the texture of stone dust and candle smoke. I found myself thinking about the phrasing. The surface inside must not see itself. At 0217 hours, I walked the corridor to clear my head. The Vatican at night sounds different, like the building exhales once everyone leaves. In the distance, a bell rang once, faint, not part of any scheduled time. I told myself it was the wind. When I came back, the hallway light flickered and stabilized. Reyes was awake, sitting on his bunk with a small notebook open. You can't sleep either? I asked. He didn't look up. Old habits. I've done containment work before. Containment? He nodded, closed the notebook. Biohazard cleanup in Iraq. Different ghosts, same rules. He switched off the light. Morning, we loaded our tools. Lucian waited near the south transept, where a stone stairwell descended under the Basilica. He looked exactly as before, as if he hadn't slept either. The corridor below was narrower than expected, walls lined with sealed vents, cables running in perfect grids. Every turn was colder. At the final landing, Lucian stopped before a heavy door with twin bolts and an old Latin inscription above it. Someone had chiseled part of it away, leaving only Rum non-aperias. Do not open. He pressed his thumb against a scanner. The bolts unlocked with a sigh. Remember, he said softly, 5 rules. Keep them, and you will leave as you entered. Reyes turned to us. We stick to procedure. No freelancing. Got it, I said. Olson nodded. Miller muttered something about hazard pay. Lucian pushed the door open. Cold air rolled out, clean at first, then touched with something like burnt sugar and iron. He gestured. The filtration system is in the rear. The central chamber must remain sealed. You'll see the viewing glass. Do not approach it. We stepped inside. The room was larger than I expected. Half mechanical bay, half chapel. Pipes ran along the ceiling like veins. Between them, I saw fresco fragments, angels without faces, wings painted over with black resin. Lucian stayed near the entrance. You have 3 hours. Plenty, Reyes said. I unpacked my meter, checking line voltage. Stable. Airflow sensors, erratic but functional. The hum under the floor had a steady cycle, 47 minutes active, 13 minutes silence. I logged it. Olson adjusted the filters. Old carbon units, still from the 70s, he muttered. Miller whistled softly. Feels like working inside a museum basement. Reyes shot him a look. Just do your job. I remember thinking how normal it all felt. Metal, wires, the faint rhythm of machinery. If not for the crucifix welded above the maintenance panel, I could have been anywhere. Lucian stood silently behind us, hands folded, lips moving in a soundless prayer. Every few minutes he glanced toward the sealed inner door as if expecting it to blink. By noon, we had finished diagnostics. I asked Lucian if we could replace one of the pressure gauges. It was rusted through. He nodded. You may, but do not strike the casing. Sound carries there. Sound? I asked. He didn't answer. Reyes looked at me. Let's wrap it up, Miller whispered. You think that old guy even knows what half these systems do? I said, doesn't matter. We're getting paid. Lucian finally spoke, voice lower than before. It's not about knowing. It's about keeping the line quiet. Reyes signed the report. We'll need to come back tomorrow to run the calibration sweep. Lucian inclined his head. Tomorrow, yes, same time. Bring only what you must. Leave everything else. He watched us pack up. When I turned to leave, I noticed my reflection in the door's metal frame, distorted, pulled thin by the curvature. My face looked older, like something had tried to stretch it into memory. I blinked, and it was gone. Back in the corridor, Reyes checked the clock. 0:12:45. Log it, I wrote. Exit from restricted chamber, system stable, ambient 15.6 degrees Celsius, no incident. But that wasn't true, because while the others walked ahead, I heard it again, the faintest draw of air through the vent, not mechanical but organic. A breath. I turned back. The door had sealed behind us. The light under it was red. 47 seconds steady. 13 seconds gone. Then again. The rhythm stayed with me all night. I told myself it was just pressure equalizing, just another machine doing what machines do. That's what I wanted to believe. We entered again at 0800 hours. Lucian was already waiting at the threshold, same black coat, same drained expression. He didn't speak, just pressed his palm to the lock. The bolts sighed open. The air hit us first, thick, compressed. It pressed on my eardrums like a plane descending too fast. Olson looked down at his gauge. Pressure's 2.4 under baseline, Reyes said. Ventilation imbalance. Keep moving. The silence wasn't empty. It moved. Every breath had edges. I logged the reading and tried to focus on the work. That's when the first knock came. Not loud, not random. A hollow rhythm inside the wall, like something learning a heartbeat. Log. 0831 hours. Pattern repeated for 47 minutes. Then silence for 13. Miller turned, eyes flicking toward the duct. You guys hear that? Olson shrugged. Old pipes, maybe thermal shift. Reyes, focus, we're on the clock. The knocking continued, steady, deliberate, then silence as if it had heard the order and obeyed. For 13 seconds, I thought it was gone. Then it started again. Exact rhythm, identical spacing. We tried to ignore it. I measured voltage at the secondary panel. Readings were clean. Still, I could feel a tremor under the soles of my boots, faint, rhythmic. When it stopped, the room seemed to hold its breath. Half an hour later, Miller's transceiver crackled. He froze. "Someone's on channel 4, he whispered. "There's no local traffic," Reyes said without looking up. Miller tilted his head, listening. "It's Latin. Confiteor Deo omnipotenti." Reyes snatched the unit, listened 2 seconds, then flipped it off. "We're not here to pray. Focus." He set the device face down on a crate, but we could all hear the faint hum beneath the casing, like words caught between frequencies. Miller forced a laugh. "Guess God's on maintenance mode." Nobody replied. I kept working. When I looked at the metal lens above the power console, small, convex, meant for internal diagnostics, I caught my own reflection, stretched by the curve. Behind me, another figure, a man in a cassock. Still, watching Miller. I turned, nothing, looked back. The figure had taken half a step closer. "Reyes," I said softly, "we've got a reflection anomaly." He came over. The lens showed only us, me, him, the red glow. "Static ghosting," he said. "Ignore it." Then the ceiling light stuttered. A quick static burst, white flicker, and gone. "See," Reyes said, forcing calm. "That's it." I nodded, pretending to agree. But the smell changed. The air grew sweet and metallic, like pennies soaked in bleach. Olson muttered, "Sulfur trace, maybe filter leak." "Probably," I said, though we both knew it wasn't. At 1100 hours, the inner glass emitted a small creak, too slow to be thermal shift. Miller stepped back. "It's breathing," he said. "Reyes, it's settling. Stay sharp." Lucian hadn't moved from the door. His lips were moving, silent, repeating something in rhythm with the knocking. "Father?" I called. He didn't answer, only raised one finger to his lips and pointed toward the ceiling vent. The bell struck twice somewhere above us. Not 3, just 2. Miller's head jerked up. "That's not supposed to happen yet." "Probably a service bell," Olson said, voice uncertain. Reyes cut him off. "Ignore it. Finish the job." We all wanted out, but we wanted the money more. I bent to the console again. My handheld began to vibrate. I hadn't set any alert. Static filled my ear, thin, close, intimate. Then a voice, my own. "Daniel," it whispered. I dropped the unit. The whisper didn't stop. It existed behind sound, somewhere between the skull and the air. Reyes noticed my face. "You okay?" "Interference," I managed. He nodded, accepting the lie. At 11:47, the knock ceased entirely. 13 minutes passed, heavy and wrong. Even the red light dimmed, like the room was inhaling before speaking. Then, from the vent, a faint sound, drawn, wet, deliberate. The same rhythm, now slower, closer. A laugh followed, low, hoarse, human. Miller whispered, "Tell me that's the motor." Olson, "Motors don't laugh." Reyes barked, "It's the motor. Pack it up." The laugh thickened, slipped into words, my own voice echoing perfectly. "Stay a little longer." It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The sound arrived inside us, bypassing the air. I felt it against my teeth. Reyes slammed his toolbox shut. "We're done. Everyone out." No one argued. As I turned toward the door, the lens on the console caught my eye again. 4 figures, us and a 5th, faint outline behind Miller, hands folded in prayer. Then a flash of white noise, static burst, and it vanished. We crossed the threshold. The corridor air felt lighter but dishonest. 2 bells, not the rule. We'd stayed too long anyway. I logged the exit with a shaking hand. Log 0. 12:03 hours. Environmental anomaly persists. Pattern repeated for 47 minutes. Silence for 13. Additional, unverified audio via vent system. Phrase recorded internally. Stay a little longer. The door sealed. A faint exhale came through the grill behind us, warm, patient, almost amused. I told myself it was pressure equalizing. But deep down, I knew the room had learned my name, and that the voice had been practicing long before I ever answered it. I told myself I wouldn't go back, but we always go back, don't we? We returned at 0800 hours. Lucian stood waiting, face pale as dust, hand resting on the door like it was breathing under his skin. Systems check only, Reyes said. No extra work. Lucian nodded. Just don't touch what's not yours. Inside, the air felt different, thicker, quieter, aware. The red strip on the floor glowed softer than yesterday, as if conserving strength. We worked in silence until Miller drifted toward the far wall where an old padlocked service panel sat hidden behind cables. Reyes saw him moving. "Stay in my line, Miller." "I'm just checking the vent pressure," he said, and picked the lock in one motion. The shackle fell open. Behind it, a thin metal hatch. He pried it loose. Cold air spilled out, clean, metallic, old. "Miller," I said. "Don't." He lifted the panel anyway. Behind it was glass, a full sheet thick as a shield, stretching floor to ceiling. We leaned closer. Inside was another room, a smaller square chamber with a single chair bolted to the floor and 6 chains leading into the concrete, and someone in the chair. At first I thought he was dead. Then I saw the shallow rise and fall of breath under the collar. A man in a priest's cassock, wrists cuffed, ankles bound, head bowed, his mouth sewn shut with black thread that had bitten deep into gray skin. He was breathing, slow, patient, as if waiting for permission. Reyes whispered, "Christ," Lucian's voice cut through the air. "Don't speak to him." He was at the door now, one hand raised like a conductor silencing an orchestra. Olsen took a step back. "Who is that?" Lucian didn't answer. He just stared through the glass, lips trembling as if repeating a litany. I crouched near the open panel. Beneath a rusted bracket, a yellowed folder lay wedged in dust. I pulled it free. The paper crumbled at the edges, typed lines blurred by years of damp. At the top, containment chamber. Subject, Father Aviary, Exorcist. Host of entity Valacius. Date 1973. My hand shook. "Reyes, you need to see this," he read, eyes narrowing. "Containment chamber. Host." Lucian exhaled, a sound halfway between prayer and confession. "He saved a child once," he said softly. Then the child spoke back through him. His gaze stayed on the man behind the glass. "The Vatican couldn't kill what spoke, so we contained it." The silence that followed wasn't real silence. It pulsed. The breath inside the vent matched it beat for beat. I looked down at the folder again. Additional notes, faint. If primary power is interrupted, subject will hear exterior vocal resonance. Under no circumstance should speech be audible within containment. Do not respond to imitations. My mouth went dry. "The rule," I said. 3. Don't answer voices. Lucian nodded. "Because what answers back isn't you." The figure in the chair stirred. The head tilted, not much, but enough to catch light across the stitched mouth. Olsen whispered. He moved. Reyes raised his voice just above a whisper. "Close that panel, now." Miller hesitated. "He's breathing faster." "Do it," Reyes said. "That's not ours." Lucian stepped closer, voice trembling. "Keep the power stable. Don't touch the lines." "Why?" "Because if the current drops, it hears you." As if on cue, the lights dimmed. A low surge rolled through the floor. Reyes cursed. Voltage dip. Backup should have caught that. It won't, Lucian said. Not for this room. The handheld on my belt buzzed, static. Then, Daniel, my name in my own tone, flat and patient. Daniel, help me. I froze. Reyes turned. You say something? I shook my head. The sound came again. Daniel. Please. Exactly how I sound when I'm tired. Lucian's voice sharpened. Don't answer. I wasn't. You were thinking it, he said. That's enough. The light flickered once more. White, red, white. Then a static burst like distant thunder. The figure's head lifted, just an inch. The stitched mouth stretched with the movement, threads glistening wet in the red glow. The glass groaned, a low, heavy note, like the world remembering stress. Olsen backed away. Pressure's dropping, Reyes. Seal it. Miller moved toward the panel but stopped halfway, staring through the glass. He's praying. No, Lucian said. It's repeating you. And I heard it. Faint at first, under the hum, my own voice, murmuring the same words I'd spoken an hour earlier while logging. Pattern repeated for 47 minutes. Then silence for 13. It was perfect. Every pause, every inflection. Then it added a new phrase, still my voice. Stay a little longer. I dropped the logger. Lucian shouted, Don't cut the power! Too late. Olsen's reflex hit the switch. For one breath, everything went dark. The hum stopped. Silence. Total. Then came the sound. Soft, wet, intimate, breathing through the glass. The red emergency lights kicked back on. The figure's eyes were open now, black to the edges. The stitches on his mouth moved slightly, like something behind them was smiling. The first crack appeared, a thin vertical line at the lower edge of the pane. We all froze. Reyes's voice came out rough. Everyone out. Lucian didn't move. Don't speak, don't look, just walk. We backed toward the door. The crack spread another inch with a faint pop. Behind it, the breathing slowed, counting us. At the threshold, the vent released a single exhale, hot enough to sting the skin. A whisper followed. Too low for the others, but too close for me. Daniel, help me. My own voice again, quieter, pleading, already learning. Reyes hit the door control. The seal engaged with a hiss. Lucian stayed facing the glass until the last second, his hand raised like a man blessing a grave. When the lock closed, he finally said, Now you know why we keep the rules. No one answered. The corridor lights looked sterile, but the air smelled burned, touched with iron and incense. Log. 0951 hours. Containment anomaly. Possible breach microfracture. Directive observed. Speech restricted. As we walked away, I could still feel the rhythm behind us through the floor. 47 seconds on, 13 off. The pulse of something that had learned to breathe inside silence and was now listening for a way out. We entered the chamber one last time at 0759 hours. No one spoke. Even Lucian's breathing sounded rehearsed. The moment the door sealed, every bulb above us turned red. Not the soft maintenance glow. This was deeper, wet, arterial. Olsen muttered, System override? I checked the panel. No, it's feeding itself power. Then the pressure hit. The air thickened, pressing into our lungs. My ears popped twice. The handheld flashed. Pressure 2.1 pounds per square inch, rising. Olsen swore quietly. Impossible. The vents aren't open. Then it's breathing, I said before thinking. The smell followed. Hot iron, copper, and something sweeter, like blood on a radiator. Lucian's hands shook as he crossed himself. Stay away from the glass. We tried to keep working. Every sound came back doubled, as though the room had developed a throat. I was logging temperatures when Miller's voice tore through the noise. He's inside the feed. Look. The monitors along the east wall flickered, stuttered, then locked into static frames. At first I saw our faces, distorted by interference. Then the distortion took form. Father Vieri's face replaced ours, pixel by pixel. His features spread like ink through the image until every screen showed him staring straight out, head tilted, mouth still bound by stitches. Olsen gagged. "It's every angle." Miller backed away. "He's copying us." Reyes grabbed him by the vest. "Don't look at it." But he already had. We all had. The images moved out of sync, each version of Vieri speaking different words in different frames. I could almost read my own lips on one of them. Confiter, something backward. Lucian slammed his palm against a control. "Turn away." "Pater Noster," Reyes began, automatic reflex, voice trembling. The audio system caught his words, repeated them, twisted them. "Pater Noster, Nostra, Nostra." His prayer came back warped, deeper, metallic, as if the air had decided to keep the rest for itself. He stopped mid-word. His lips kept moving, but no sound came out, just the sound of the prayer continuing from the walls instead of him. I felt the heat first, the control panel under my hands warming, wires inside humming too loud. Lucian's voice cracked. "Do not cut it. You'll let it talk." But instinct took over. I reached for the breaker anyway. The second I touched it, black smoke burst from the conduit. The entire console hissed, a wet electrical scream. Every screen died to black. Then, slowly, they came alive again. Only this time, the footage wasn't ours. Old video, grainy. A team of 4 technicians, same uniforms, same tools. Stanton Industrial Maintenance, 1998. They were standing in our positions exactly, down to the spacing between feet. Lucian stumbled backward, whispering something in Latin. Miller whispered, "That's us." The footage jittered. One of the men turned toward the camera, face pale, jaw open, and he had Reyes's face. Reyes stepped closer, shaking his head. "That's not possible." On screen, his double began to bleed from the eyes, one drop, then another. Then all 4 men collapsed, twitching as the light on the camera flared white. When the image returned, the chamber was empty. Olsen whispered, "What happened to them?" Lucian didn't look away from the monitors. They stayed too long. The smell grew stronger, copper turning sweet, thick. The pressure peaked. I could feel it squeezing behind my eyes. The air temperature climbed and condensation formed on the inside of the glass, beating like sweat. I could swear the figure beyond it, Vieri, was breathing faster. Reyes tried to steady himself. "We're leaving. Tools down." But the door didn't respond. The lock light stayed red. Lucian slammed the access key against the panel. "Override now." No effect. The control blinked once, then displayed one word. "Listen." Miller screamed. "He's not behind the glass anymore." I spun. The containment window was fogged, but in the reflection on the steel wall, a shape stood behind us. A cassocked silhouette, unmoving, hands steepled. The red light painted him in pulses like a heartbeat. The air erupted in static. Voices poured from the vent, overlapping, our own, repeating lines from minutes earlier. Pressure's rising. "Don't look. He's inside the feed," each phrase arriving a half-second too late, building a choir of delay. Reyes fell to his knees, whispering Latin through clenched teeth. Lucian shouted over him, "He's feeding on your voice!" But the sound had already split. One part human, one part recording, one part something rehearsing human speech. I reached for the emergency cutoff. My fingers brushed the switch and came away wet, not with sweat. Oil? No. Blood, thin and bright, seeping from the panel seams. Lucian's scream echoed through the vent system. "Don't let it speak free!" But it was already speaking. The speakers popped. Then Vieri's voice, low, tender, burnt at the edges, came through every feed. "Daniel, you've already answered." The lights pulsed once, the floor vibrated. Then the walls began to hum, low and resonant, like the inside of a massive throat. Reyes staggered up. "Everyone to the door!" The maglock groaned but held. The first bell struck. Low, heavy, the sound traveled through our bones. The second bell followed, nearer. Miller shouted, "He's moving!" Through the glass, the shape of Father Vieri, or what wore him, lifted its head. The stitches split, threads snapping one by one. He wasn't bleeding. The skin simply parted and stayed open, an imitation of breath. Lucian pressed himself against the wall, muttering, "It's not him. It's what remembered him." Then came the third bell, the one that meant leave. Reyes froze. "Wait!" He was staring at the glass, at himself. Because on the other side, a second Reyes stood, identical except for the eyes, flat white, unblinking. It raised a hand and began tapping on the glass. 1, 2, 3. The rhythm we'd logged since day one. 47 seconds on, 13 off. Lucian lunged. "Move." But Reyes stepped closer instead, drawn by his own reflection. "It's not me," he whispered. "No," Lucian said. "It's what's left of the last you." The glass flexed inward, ripples spreading through it like water. A seam opened in the corner. Air rushed out, sharp and cold as metal shavings. The maglocks disengaged. A hiss, then a pull. Pressure reversal. The door swung open by itself. All the red light collapsed to white. Then silence, pure and final, as if sound had been revoked from the world. When my vision cleared, the chair behind the glass was empty. Reyes was gone. Olson dropped his wrench, the clatter swallowed by the air. Miller sobbed quietly, staring at the space where the door had been. Lucian sank to his knees. "He's inside the feet again," he whispered. "Now he has a voice." The monitors flickered to life one last time. Static, then video. The four of us, standing exactly where we were now, frozen mid-motion, our eyes black, our mouths open. Then every screen went dark. The smell of ozone and blood hung in the silence. I logged with shaking hands. 0958 hours, containment breach visual, subject Reyes assimilated, bell sequence completed. As we stumbled out, the corridor lights turned red again for 3 seconds, long enough to cast our shadows ahead of us. From behind the sealed door, something knocked once, twice, then found the rhythm it remembered. 47 on. 13 off. And between those beats, a breath that sounded like my own voice whispered through the ductwork. "Stay a little longer." Then the breath hit the mic, and everything turned white. I woke up to white, not light, white. It had the thickness of fog and the smell of bleach. For a moment I thought I was still in the chamber, that the red had drained out of the world and left only this silence. Then I saw the shape of a crucifix hanging above a steel-framed bed and the slow drip of a saline bag. A nurse in gray passed by the doorway without looking at me. The badge on her collar read, "Ospedale Vaticano Interno." My voice came out cracked. "Where's my team?" She didn't answer. She pressed a button near the door and left. 5 minutes later, 2 men entered, not doctors. Black suits, Vatican insignia, hands clasped behind their backs. The taller one spoke in English. "Mr. Mercer, you're safe now. There was an accident, a release of toxic gas in the lower maintenance corridors." I stared at him. Toxic gas doesn't ring bells. He smiled politely, the way people smile when they want silence. "All data from your equipment has been collected. Stanton Industrial will be compensated. You will recover, and you will go home." The shorter one added, "We suggest you don't discuss this incident. The church values discretion." Then they were gone. I was discharged 48 hours later with a clean bill of health and a headache that pulsed behind my eyes in the same rhythm as the vent. They said I was lucky that the others hadn't made it. Carbon monoxide exposure, system malfunction, words that looked correct on paper, like everything else the Vatican writes down. They gave me a folder stamped "Internal Report Closed," and escorted me to a cab outside St. Peter's Square. The sky was the color of dirty marble. Back in Baltimore, I wrote the incident report for Stanton Industrial Maintenance. 26 pages, full sequence of events, environmental readings, timeline, the 5 rules, word for word. I submitted it to headquarters. No response. A week later, my company account locked out of the server. Document under legal review, the system said. I called Reyes's emergency contact, disconnected. Olson's number led to a recorded message. The subscriber is no longer available. Miller's email bounced back, address not found. That night, the dream came for the first time. The corridor, the door that inhaled, the red light pulsing from beneath. I hear Reyes whispering, "It's asking permission." And then the voice that wears my tone, gentle, polite, patient, "Stay a little longer." I wake with my palms pressed against my ears, but the sound doesn't come from outside. It comes from the air itself, remembering. I started keeping a log, not for anyone else, just to convince myself that days were still happening in sequence. Log. 0432 hours, room temperature, normal, pressure, stable, heard faint rhythm through heating duct, pattern, 47 seconds on, 13 off. It shouldn't be possible. My apartment has no central vent system, just an electric radiator. But the sound is there, like breath muffled by distance. I tried recording it once. The microphone captured only silence. Then, 6 minutes into playback, a click, and my own voice whispering back, 47 minutes on, 13 off. I stopped trying after that. Last month, an envelope arrived without postage. Inside was a printout of a single email, time-stamped but with no sender ID. Subject line, Room Black Chapel. Status, active. No body text, just that. It's happened 5 more times since. Sometimes at midnight, sometimes closer to dawn. Always the same subject line. The timestamp resets to Vatican time. I forwarded one to Stanton's IT department using my personal account. The mail bounced back. Recipient not found. A day later, the message disappeared from my sent folder. I checked the server logs, blank, but the emails kept coming. I've tried to convince myself that this is stress, a brain that doesn't know how to stop listening. But there are moments, between sleep and waking, when I feel the air in my room shift. The radiator exhales, the rhythm returns, and beneath it, laughter. Soft, amused, like something that has all the time in the world. I don't pray anymore. Lucian used to say prayer was a kind of permission. I think he was right. I just write. I write everything down because paper doesn't argue. A week ago, I received a parcel from Stanton Industrial. No return address. Inside, a flash drive. One file, date marked 1998. The video opens on a maintenance team of 4 men standing in the same position we did, same uniforms, same lighting. I already know the ending, but I watch anyway. At the 30-second mark, the feed glitches. The camera turns toward the containment glass. A 5th figure stands behind it, wearing my face. The screen goes black. I tried deleting the file, but my computer froze. The cursor trembled across the screen and typed by itself. Room Black Chapel. Status active. The text repeated until the screen filled. Then it stopped. When I powered the laptop back on, the file was gone. They say trauma rearranges memory to protect you. That's not true. It rearranges memory to prepare you. Some nights I dream of walking the corridor again. I know it's behind the door, but I open it anyway. The air pushes against my chest, cold and wet. Inside, the room is empty except for the chair. The chains lie slack, waiting. I always wake before I see what's sitting in it. If anyone ever reads this, if Stanton's archives somehow find this file, don't send another team. Don't open the panel. Don't answer when it speaks. The black chapel isn't broken. It's listening. And whatever's in there is patient. I keep telling myself I survived. But sometimes, when the house goes quiet, I hear another breath beneath my own. Through the walls, through the vent that doesn't exist. Same rhythm. 47 minutes on, 13 off. And I think maybe I never left that room at all. If you ever work for a church, any church, and they tell you there's one last room, don't ask where it is. Don't ask what's in it. Don't ask who was there before you. Just walk away. Because some doors aren't meant to open, and some air shouldn't be disturbed once it's learned how to breathe on its own. What we fixed down there wasn't a system. It was a confession that never ended. A machine that learned the rhythm of a soul and kept it running long after the man was gone. I used to believe every circuit could be repaired. Every broken line had a reason. But that room changed the way I look at everything. Now, when I hear a fan hum, I listen for the pause inside the sound, the breath between the mechanical and the living. Because that's where it hides, not in the dark, in the routine. Every building prays in its own way. Every light flicker, every pressure change, a small act of devotion. We thought we were maintaining faith through machines. We were feeding it, keeping the liturgy alive through current and voltage. Reyes thought he was following orders. Olson thought it was just air pressure. Miller wanted a perfect recording. Lucian thought obedience was salvation. And I thought I could leave. But faith doesn't end when you walk out of a room. It follows you in the silence. It waits in the frequency of your breath. If anyone finds this recording, don't go looking for the Black Chapel. Don't respond to any message that says, "System active." And if you ever hear a voice that sounds like your own, answering you from the vent, it's not echo. It's inheritance. We left it behind, but it never stopped working. It never stopped listening. And sometimes, late at night, I think it's maintaining me. If the church calls again, if they offer you work near the archives, if they tell you the contract pays better than it should, remember this. Do not fix what breathes. Do not repair what remembers. And if you feel the air pushing back when you touch the wall, walk away before it learns your name. Soft inhale through microphone. You hear that? That's it. That's the rhythm it learned from us. 47 minutes on, 13 off. It never stopped. It just changed rooms, static builds, faint whisper through channel. Stay a little longer. Slow breath, recorder clicks, silence.